9:05, Ready Wammo Breakfast. The bits ideas are free now with Ben Young at bwagy.com. Good morning, Ben.
Good morning.
And today we're talking about the week of opposites.
Yes, I think the Harvard Business Review editor thought, well, why don't I prove a whole lot of articles which are the exact opposite of what you'd think. And one of the articles up there last week was saying, instead of innovating, copy. And there's an author of multiple innovation books talking about how he went across to Africa, and there was a venture capital firm there, and they were asking him, say, which of this list should we invest in? And so he made his picks, and the guy said, hey, thanks for that. To be honest, we wouldn't touch any of those.
Okay.
They'd be duds. And he was like, well, what's going on here? And they said, well, in Africa, we're trying to get companies that copy business models offshore. We're not looking for new innovative models which are cutting edge.
Right.
Because we know that something works in the States, chances are it's going to work here.
Much like the Japanese post-war. Did a lot of the stuff that was being done in the States, but more efficiently.
But that was their whole approach. They were calling it, the China method. Just copy something that's already working, roll it out. Now, I've mentioned on the show before that it's very interesting in certain parts of Africa and Nigeria, new technology doesn't roll out sequentially like it does here, where we're at the cutting edge. It rolls out in parallel. So, for example, in terms of marketing initiatives over the last couple of years, we've had local lists, we've had daily deal websites pop up, and so those are pushing the barriers a little bit. But in Nigeria, the same person that owns billboards, radio ads, owns the Trade Me equivalent, owns the local Daily Deal website. And so they just get all pushed into market at once.
Okay.
It's very, very different. But so he was saying, look, we put so much focus on innovation, doing the cutting edge, slightly beating the competition. Maybe it's time to have a look at what are things that we can copy. And he talks about the Samwer brothers. Have you heard of these guys?
No.
A couple of German guys, and they're very renowned for taking a concept from the States, copying it and selling it. So they've built a German Facebook, a German LinkedIn, a German Twitter. They and
reasonably big over there.
Yeah, reasonably big. They've sold for billions of dollars. So
I think they did the Pinterest, version of Pinterest.
Yeah, they've done a Pinterest version. And their argument is, hey, look, other guys are good at innovating. We're really good at slick execution. There's room for us in the market. And there's a lot of controversy around that. But I think it's totally valid. If someone else is executing a business model or an idea, why not give it a go or take that and put it into a different industry? The benefits of it are someone else has already made some of the mistakes. The path to market is very straightforward. The customer experience is straightforward. It is kind of easier to get investors on board because you can say, this is like YouTube for X. Doesn't mean it's going to work. But it just makes a few little things easier.
It's the risk for a company like Frontier, right? That they go to places like Argentina and set up farms there. And then other local business and farmers there say, oh, actually, we don't need you buying our farms or telling us how to do it. We can see how you've done it. We'll do it ourselves now as well. So there's a lot of risks in the market, isn't there?
Yep, there's definitely a lot of risks for that. And I dare say casual tours of the farms wouldn't be permitted. But it does happen. A colleague of mine was tasked with building a factory in China. And it was a real worry that the people building the factory were building the same exact factory down the street. Because that happens quite a bit. You task someone with building an innovative, let's say, a clean room where you build chips like Intel, and someone down the street builds the same thing. Because it can happen. Okay, we put this over here, and they just order two of everything.
So another example of an opposite?
So the other one is... It's quite interesting. They had a few articles like this, taking what we thought you take for granted and then flipping it on its head. And this one was, if you're not micromanaging, you're not leading. Ooh, which can be a bit touchy. So the author references this latest situation with JP Morgan. Have you heard about this one? Where they reported the multi-billion-dollar loss. But they couldn't say where the positions were, because then everyone would know and that loss would be magnified.
Right.
Those losses have gotten worse. And what happened was initially the traders took it to the CEO and said, and they put their analysis, and Tom said, this is kind of what's happening.
Yeah.
So when he presented it to the market, he presented it as not a big deal because he had that middle level of analysis. Things didn't get better. So after a couple of weeks, he was in a meeting, he said, I want to see the positions. I want to see the exact market data. Where are we? What's happening?
Mm-hmm.
And he saw those positions, and then he was able to make the proper decisions from that, and it was much worse than he expected. Some of those medium tier analysis doesn't always help in crisis situations. And so what the author is saying is, look, as a leader you have to know and understand the details, the small things which make up the business. It's like reviewing your supply chain and finding out the farms that supply your product.
Wasn't Steve Jobs was an example of that, right? The ultimate micromanager. Now, I would have thought Zuckerberg was the same sort of character within Facebook, and maybe he has been, but I just wonder about the IPO float and what's gone wrong with that he wasn't across the whole thing.
Yeah, well, with the IPO float, it's a whole lot of new things, right? Facebook is good at building a social network. Going public is something completely different. And it probably was one of the first big decisions where they had to rely completely on external
advice.
Expertise. A lot of their advisory board and board of directors and investors would have had that experience, but some of the things that went wrong were not things...
But the leader has always got that gut feeling, eh? Yeah. And you either choose to go with that or go against it.
Yeah. So really interesting. Just week of opposites.
Week of opposites. Well, more is up at bwagy.com, and you can continue the conversation with Ben on Twitter, twitter.com/bwagy. Thanks, mate.
Cheers.